like Greg was saying, the treats tonight are sponsored by AZ Tech Finders. They're actually instrumental in putting this whole group together. There are 6 Perl developers here, exclusively developers. That's all we've got in this office. So anyway, no obligation. But if you are looking for a job, or think you might be looking for a job, they're actually really good people. So. I know not everybody likes headhunters, but these guys they're pretty straight. So anyways, so if you decide later you want to get one, I'll leave them here. Okay, just talk amongst yourselves for a little while longer. And Tom is. I figured we'd give it until at least 5 after, and then I'll just call him and have him come back up. Actually, I just wanted to do a head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, yeah. Anybody who hasn't, yeah, you guys don't have to sign in.
You want on your camera too?
Oh, you know what? I'm thinking we can just move that out of your way, because there's probably no point. It's going to be too much work for you to worry about my camera, so.
Actually, I can't move any further that way because my cable.
Okay.
My power cable.
All right. Well, you know what? I'll just leave it set up then, and we'll just forget about it. I won't even turn it on.
Well, I think it's so you don't have to step over it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. You can just unplug it from the back and drop it on the floor. That'll work. Yep. Okay. Anybody who didn't sign in who wants to? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Thanks. All right, you can talk amongst yourselves for another couple minutes. It looks like we've got most everybody. Let's see, we've got 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
I'd like to know if anybody has been successful in getting Perl TKX to work with anything but Active State. I've never been. Active State works gangbusters. TKX, but just barefoot Perl. And try to install the modules. It fails every time.
Okay.
I just wondered if anybody.
Okay, are we talking on Windows or Linux or either? Oh, you don't care. Okay.
Yeah, I
don't know. Anybody have an answer to that question?
Or on Linux, either one.
Really? Okay. I don't know. Anybody have an answer? I guess not. I guess it must be broken.
Just TK or
which
one?
TK.
You. Okay. That's fine.
Perl TK is.
All right.
When the guy with
talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
A couple years ago.
I'm just going to call Tom because if nobody else has showed up, I think we're probably good. So. See. That's funny. Yeah, he's downstairs. I was just going to call him. I hope he remembered his phone. Oh, there we got. Oh, okay, great. There we go. I was about to call you, so perfect timing. I think that's probably pretty much everybody. So. If not, you can grab either some of these or some of the office chairs. Okay. All right, we've got Tom. We've got one more in here, and hopefully, I'll warn you guys now. If anybody shows up late, I'm actually going to be interrupted. So sorry about that. But they'll call me, and I'll have somebody go down and let them in. But okay, ready to go? Yes. Okay. I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome. I am amazed there were this many people for the first meeting. This is great. I'm really happy to see all you guys turn out for this. It's wonderful. I'm Doug Miles. I used to run the group about 5 years ago. I ran it for, I don't remember, like 6 or 7-ish years, something like that. Got too busy, wasn't able to do it. Then there were a couple other people that ran it for a while.
Scott and Brock.
Yeah, exactly, Scott and Brock. And then it was kind of on hiatus for a little bit. I don't know how much people were actually getting together or not. And the mailing list has been kind of deadish. But anyways, decided that I wanted to get it started again. So here we all are. Introductions, fun stuff. We won't do this every time, I promise, just because it's the first meeting. Just thought I'd go around. I'll just pick on you, Bob. You can just go around, just give your name, either how long you've used Perl or what you think roughly your experience level is. I just want to get a feel for like what types of presentations, whether we want like expert or intermediate or beginner or what. We'll vary it anyway, but I just want to get a feel
My
for
name's
it.
Bob Lindley. I work at Boeing out across from Falcon Field. I've been using Perl quite a bit for, I forgot how long, 12 years maybe?
Okay.
I'm Bill Lindley. I've been using Perl since '95. When I needed actually Perl TK to do a cross-platform graphical application, mostly been using it for databases lately.
How many 10 years using Perl?
Brian William. I have about 15 years programming, but only off and on in Perl. Doug actually got me into this.
Marty Bell, I've been using Perl about 8 years. Josh Rowe, about 12 years. Brian Gibrick, about 10 years on and off.
Okay.
Ray Youngblood? About 15 years.
Eric Thielen, as my day job for about 5 years.
Eric Tank, since '97.
Okay.
Behind the camera, I'm John Jackson. I've used it for about 5 or 6 years, although I haven't done programming for about the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
I use it for testing the software.
Okay. Doug Miles, and I've used Perl for about 15 years.
Did these guys go?
Oh yeah. Sorry, middle guys. Don't want to miss
Eric
you.
Klein, I've been using for about 15 years. It's my day job currently. I work at Shopzilla.com, and I do. I run the build scripts for building the data sets for our search engine.
Doug Thompson, I've been using Perl for about 8 years. I don't know anything yet.
Okay.
There you go.
The more you know,
That's
you
fine.
should know.
I use it at work, but but I haven't really. I guess that's what I tell myself, so I can continue to try to learn.
Well, that's what you'll do here.
The one thing I find is that every time I think I'm doing better than intermediate, I find someone else's code and I feel stupid.
Butter, you want to go?
Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we kicked in. I forgot to go. Hi, Mark Bottolato, aka Botto. Perl for probably 15 years now, 16, something like that. And I work here.
Okay. Thanks. All right, we did get everybody then, right? I think we did. Okay. All right. The project I picked tonight was to talk about a wiki I made. Obviously, the wiki itself is not that interesting. It's more of a launching off point to talk about some interesting pieces in the guts. Because, everybody kind of knows what a wiki is and what it does, and they're fairly simple. So there's really not much to that. But I also picked it because it would be a relatively not long talk so that we would have a little extra time to talk about where we want to go as a group and that sort of thing. So basically, my design goals when I did this is I decided I didn't want to use wiki markup because I wanted people like my wife not to have to learn wiki markup. She actually knows a little HTML, but I didn't even want her to need to know that much. I wanted it to just be dead simple that anyone who knew how to use a browser and knows how to just use general computer application could use it. So, and I also wanted to test content filtering for the framework that I've been developing for, I don't know, about 10 years or so. And yes, I know there are a million others out there, but at the time when I started developing it, there weren't a million others. So anyways, but it's kind of a hobby, keeps me out of trouble. All right. There's no particular format for wiki words for people who are familiar with wiki markup. I know there are different flavors, but usually you have to specify wiki words, things that are supposed to be links to other pages in some kind of special format. Here you don't have to do that at all. And again, no need to learn the wiki markup. Any questions so far? Okay, this is it. Nothing fancy design-wise. I just wanted to keep it simple for this presentation. Basically the junk that's in here is kind of stream of consciousness when I was putting junk in here. So anyway, I just put a subsection here for Phoenix PM, to-do list. My wife actually uses it for grocery lists, the real one at home. So, you could do all kinds of things. I actually use it also to keep track of things that I've lent people, because I never remember what I lend people stuff and who I lent it to. 6 months later, I go to find something. I'm like, where did that go? And unless that person gets back to me, it's gone forever. Okay, so just to click through here, I may kind of be in the way. Just to give you an idea, I just put, Brian, you're going to love this, because I put your name in here because I thought, his last name is such a perfect search term. So I threw you in here. So anyways, just again, another page. Let's go ahead and add somebody here, just so I can show you how it works. Okay, basically, you've got JavaScript. I didn't write this. One of the free. There are a lot of free JavaScript HTML editors. I'm sure a lot of you are aware. So you can go in here and just use this as a quick little WYSIWYG editor. So I'll just go in here. I'll add Eric in here. Copy that. Turn it into a link. Paste it just as it is, spaces and all. Save content. Click here. Boom, new page. So it's just, just like a wiki. Nothing special. The actual magic, and I'll show you part of this later when I get into the code, is that it's smart enough to figure out what a wiki internal link should be and what an external link should look like. So you can actually put, real off-wiki links into here, and it'll leave those alone. Anything that doesn't look like an actual link, like this, it will turn into, a wiki link and get you to the next page where you need to go. So, again, you can delete, you can rename. Who cares? That's really not all that interesting. Anybody want to see anything else or have any questions before I go on? And I'll have to make sure I'm not talking too fast, because sometimes I do that. So tell me to slow down if you can't understand what I'm saying.
Think about having it just automatically turn words into links without even having to, do you know what I mean? Like when you hit save, have it just go through all the pages.
The problem is because you need it, you'd have to have a wiki format, and that's what I was trying to avoid. Yep. So that's more or less. Oh, it does have a search engine here, and I'll do this just for Brian. So it'll just give you wherever that shows up here, give you the link to it. I also added a little history here, just to get you around wherever you're going. So,
see you guys.
Oh, see you, Mark. Have a great trip. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. All right. Okay, I'll talk just a little bit about the class relationship. This is very high level, very rough, but just enough to give you an idea. Basically, I have a base class that takes care of things like keeping track of configuration and all of that sort of thing. You've got a template object which is actually represents a page, and it reads those in, and then basically that calls the parser, which actually parses the tags out. You'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. I'll open up a page and show you the tags that get parsed. Then the tag module, basically what it is just a whole module full of different tag commands, so that when the parser parses these, it figures out, is this a variable? Like, is it a scalar? Is it an array? Is it a hash? Or is it a command? And if it's a command, it goes out to the tag and tries to run that method. So, everybody clear with that so far? That's pretty simple structure right there. Okay. First, I'll talk about the content filtering part. And I'm going to, let's see, make this. Can everybody read that? Okay, yeah, that's what I like about having this in the browser. It makes it nice and easy too. Okay, well, these are basically what the tags like. They're delimited by, square bracket, dash, dash, for no particular reason. Well, actually, yeah, there was a particular reason. Back when I was first making this, I was working with a lot of designers who used Dreamweaver, and it was very fussy about certain characters inside of certain places in the HTML, and it would encode them. So it turned out that these worked pretty well for not getting encoded and remaining like they were supposed to be, so that I could hand my templates off to the designers. They could do their Dreamweaver thing, and they could hand them back to me, not broken. So that was kind of the goal. So that's why I ended up with this. So this is just basically an include statement. You've got, this is the includes the tiny MC editor, which was the HTML editor I showed you later, which only loads that when you're in edit mode. That way it's not loading it when you're just displaying a page and you don't actually need it. This is, so these are both command tags, okay? Basically, I stole a lot of the design off of just HTML. Just the way HTML works, you've got like a tag name and you've got, key value pairs basically. Which actually, also another design element I took from HTML is that it will ignore any key value pairs that you throw at it that it doesn't understand. There's actually a reason for that. I'll get to that later. Some cool things that I kind of did with that. So this right here is just a scalar value, and again, since I didn't feel like inventing my own language, I just stole Perl syntax. So you've got just $page value is this. I aliased inside of this, the code that handles this, $_ to whatever the name of the variable is here. I also did that with @_ and %_, which actually was kind of fun. So basically you can use those as an alias to kind of shorten your code in here. So basically if you don't pass anything in here, the title it uses is index page. So I'm not going to go through all of these. Let's just get to the part here that I have to do some funny escaping here for JavaScript so that it all works. Right here, if you use a variable without anything else, it assumes that you're displaying it. So whatever the value is, boom, just shows up there. Okay, let's see. Okay, right here is the content filtering part I wanted to talk about. The display content tag I'll talk more about later. There's a funny little trick I do with that. So basically, it's got a key that it uses to store the content, and the content in the for this is actually stored in files and directories, not in a database, just because it turned out, for key value pairs that was pretty convenient. And also, I allow you to create keys with slashes in them, which kind of auto-vivify into directory paths and file names. So that way you can, I don't really use it for the wiki, but for some of the other things I use, that way you can have duplicate key names under different directories, that sort of thing. Okay, basically what I do is, create HTML parser, which I don't know anybody used HTML parser. There's, a million other parsers I could have used, but I was just keeping it simple here because I didn't need to do much with it. So basically, if the tag is an anchor tag, I look for a relative link and I treat it as a wiki word. And so anything that, and I go ahead and escape that, And this is where I create my link to, whatever the page is. So whatever the page name is goes off there. Any questions so far? Making sense so far? All right, good. All right.
How come you don't need an ampersand with page 142? Between
142.
programs you're sending, is that because of the way session ID parameter works?
I'm sorry, I missed the...
Where's this page equals page?
Yeah.
Do you not need to separate the session ID from the page? I'm curious why there's just
Oh, yeah, because basically this is a variable, and I have to put a backslash here to tell it that this is terminating, and that page is not part of the variable name.
Tag code to parse that?
No, that's actually Perl that's doing that.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you asked that. Because actually, yeah, all of this, I am abusing the heck out of eval. Basically, it's all Perl code that gets passed to eval. Because I'm like, why should I write my own parser? Perl's got one, so I hand it to eval. There you go. So, yeah, that's a very good question. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, so that's all that is just telling it the page is not part of this so that... And I'm double quoting this so that this gets interpolated and that gets interpolated. So otherwise, I just gather up the text. If it's not an anchor link, I just gather up the rest of the text. And so that's part of the content filter, and that's what the reason I really did this was kind of a proof of concept of that.
So you're kind of assuming that the person is not going to try and create a page called semicolon system quote format semicolon.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, yeah, I should probably have some more stuff. But what's that?
RM-RF.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, that right there is a perfect example of why this is more or less just a proof of concept. Because I just wanted to test this idea out, so I figured a wiki was an easy way of doing it.
Don't want him on your server.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, Mrs. Johnson, yes, we have a problem. Ever since your son changed his last name to be semicolon, so drop all.
Yes.
Semicolon.
We call him Little Bobby Tables. I've seen that before.
Question about that. Not to get off on a tangent, the escape stuff, but is that a relatively safe way to just simply escape stuff out, just cause it to be alphanumeric and remove all the other syntax?
Yeah, that's if I was going to prevent that sort of thing, yeah, that's exactly what I would do. And you know what? Just because of you, I'm going to go and add that. See, this is why these meetings are good too, because you get stuff like that and it motivates you. And actually, I went in and fixed a whole bunch of things in here actually before I came tonight too. I was like, I really should make that better, and so I did. So it's actually good. So I highly recommend it to anyone who wants to volunteer. If you've got a project that you've been meaning to fix things on, volunteer to present it, and then you'll fix it. Works really well, I promise. Okay, that's enough about that. So let's look at something else I wanted to talk about. And I'll admit, if this talk seems a little random, it is. I just basically look through it and go, oh, that looks interesting to talk about. I'll talk about that. So most of that, the wiki stuff has been covered. I'll come back to a little bit more later when I talk about some other specific things. This is the tag module I was telling you about. What I wanted to talk about is the autoloader. Anybody used it before? Once, okay. A few people have. Okay. Basically, as I was developing this back in the day, like 10 years ago, and I kept adding more and more and more functions to it, and it kept getting slower and slower and slower, because every time this was loaded, Perl would go through and compile all of these wonderful methods for me. Problem was, on a given page, how many do I need? You know, like 3, 5, definitely less than 10, unless I'm doing something crazy. So basically what autoloader does for you is splits up all your functions into separate files, and then at runtime pulls them in and compiles them for you so that you're only compiling the methods you actually call rather than the entire file, which means I can sit here and add more and more and more junk to this, and I don't have to worry about performance problem because it's splitting it all up and then loading each individual method that I need at runtime. So anyway.
Do you have to add that to each module? That's your
line 13?
Yeah. Do you have to keep you?
Yeah, basically you do that for each module that's actually going to use it. Yeah, okay. That's actually going to use it. So.
You consider using Perl to speed things up?
Actually, at one point I did have this working with Perl, and unfortunately it was an accident of timing that I picked a really bad time to be using Perl when there were a whole bunch of things broken. And so pretty much I switched it back to CGI. I probably will go back to Perl now, but this was like several years ago. And Perl and my framework did not play nicely at all. Pretty much there was some kind of an infinite loop that would happen. It would run literally on the same machine under the same Apache. In CGI it would run fine. Under Perl, nothing. Yeah, so that's a good question, but yes. Yes. And since this is a hobby thing, it's just like whenever I have time I work on it. Basically I get anything that I want loaded every time goes just in the normal place it would. I'm probably in your way, Eric, but I'll scroll down here. So hang on, let me look for. Okay, there we go. All right. So with autoloader, basically you put everything after the end token, and there's my one, just in case you were wondering where that is for use. But then after the end token, you basically just put all of your methods or functions, and it will go in there and figure it out. And it works with another module called auto split, and that's the thing that splits it out into separate files for you. And then like I said, at runtime, autoloader looks through the symbol table, goes, oh, I don't have that method, goes out, looks for it, finds it, loads it in, compiles it, executes it for you at runtime. I've also got this set up too so that you can create your own tags that are outside of this framework, because I find like I may have a project specific tag that is not generic enough to go in here, but I can put it in a different namespace, and again I do the same thing. It'll figure out where it needs to go for that. You just fully qualify the namespace. It'll go out and grab that method for you and execute it for you. So, any other questions on auto-loading? Oh, I'm doing all right on time. Okay. So that's basically it, just something I found really handy. Obviously, if you were running in some kind of a persistent environment, well, then it doesn't make so much sense anymore, because you'd rather take your hit at startup time. If this was going to just sit and hang out forever, autoloader doesn't make much sense. But since it's under CGI and I take the hit every run, it does make sense to. And it definitely did make a huge, literally it was very noticeable when I switched to autoloader. It was definitely noticeable because it was starting to get really slow. Okay. All right. Function aliases. Anybody done any function aliasing before? Actually, where did Eric go? I was just talking, not you, Eric. Sorry, I got two Erics sitting right next to each other. Okay. Oh, did he? Okay. Well, anyways, I was talking to him about this not too long ago, so it's a bummer he's not here. Okay. Basically, you can alias different method names to each other so that either name that you use, or you could have several, call the same function or method. And basically I'm using the Perl symbol table. You've got a glob here, which if you want to, I'm not going to go deep into symbol table stuff. This is just kind of covering the the basics. So if you really want to know more about the symbol table, look it up online or pick up a good book, because I'm going to kind of gloss over a little of the details. But basically, the glob tells Perl in the symbol table, I want something of this name. Then it looks over here to see what kind of thing you're assigning it to. Since I'm assigning it to a function reference, it knows that over here in the symbol table, I'm talking about a function, not like a scalar or an array or a hash or anything like that. So I've got a couple here just because basically these things both do the same exact code as insert, but for clarity's sake, when you're actually calling the tag, it made more sense to actually specify whether you were doing an update, a delete, or an insert. So anyways, just save myself some duplicate code there. So just thought in case, some people aren't even aware you can do this. So
I did like a major refactor, and then I caught myself that I couldn't get away from using the old method. And I've got this new great method name.
Oh, there you go.
I have to support the old method name, so.
There you go. That's a great example of why you might want to use it. That's actually a great example. Thanks. All right. Okay, you remember I said earlier that display content tag, that I'd get back to something a little interesting about it? Well, this is it. Basically, I have an edit content tag, which you pass it some parameters, like which template I'm editing content in. And you notice when I did the wiki, in fact, I'll show you again. Let's see, this one. When I say edit page, you notice the outside of this looks exactly like you just did. The only thing different is this content area here is replaced with an editor. So the reason that I did this was so that you could do in-page editing. I can actually have more than one content area here if I want. I could have 10 of them on a page if I wanted to, different areas of content. And you could also share them. As long as you use the same key name, you could share pieces of content across pages too. So you could set footers and headers and all that junk. But again, since the wiki's simple, I'm not really doing any of that. So this right here has called this edit content tag. And what I'm doing here, hang on. Right here, redefine display content to allow for editing instead of displaying. You remember when I showed you the code earlier, there was a display content tag. I'm using that for a dual purpose. I'm actually hijacking it in edit mode, and instead of displaying the content, I'm using that tag as a place mark for where to put the editor. So what I'm doing, no warnings, redefine. I'm telling Perl, hey, I'm about to do something really crazy here, so don't complain. I know what I'm doing and honest. Then I set sub display content. Right here, I am literally redefining in the symbol table my display content, which used to display content, now does different stuff here. And what it does is puts out this, little bit of HTML, puts a tag in there for my content editor label, which is this part right here. So this is whatever the key is that you're editing for. And if that was a path, it would show the full path and stuff there too. And here's your text area. There's your content key. You remember I was talking about that earlier. That's how it finds the path to find the content on the disk. And right here, this is what I was talking about earlier with being able to pass in things in my system. If it doesn't understand what the key value pairs mean, it just ignores them. Here's one of the areas that I use that, is because then instead of my tag needing to be HTML aware, I'm transparently passing on any HTML attributes here that I want, so that when HTML6 comes out and they have some funky new tags, I can still pass those in, and I don't have to mess with my code at all. It doesn't have to be aware of HTML. It just passes those through, and it allows me to format my my text area the way I want it to. Actually, let me go back and show you that tag again, and it'll probably make a little more sense. See, like right here, rows, columns. Those are not parameters that this command knows anything about. That's just HTML. It just passes that through so that I can define right in the tag, gets passed through to the other side, shows up as HTML, voila. Any questions so far? Okay. Well, I was a little worried about being so outnumbered, but this has been a good crowd so far. Nobody's thrown anything yet. Okay. All right, so does this make sense to everybody here? What I did, basically I took a method that was already defined. I told Perl, hey, I want to redefine it, and I made it do something different. So now when it sees that method, it actually puts an editor in there instead of displaying the content. So that can come in.
Editor in there, which, like, you just do the link.
Basically,
binary.
Basically, that would be, yeah, it's the JavaScript part of it, which I don't actually have in here. I kind of caught, or hang on, I'm on the wrong file here.
No, it's okay.
Oh, did I close it? Oh yeah, no, it's this one. Right here, right. This include is all the JavaScript nastiness that I need to load this.
So that's the name of the actual, is it like a Perl module then that it loads? Or
no, it's just literally these includes are just like server-side includes.
Oh, okay.
So they just pull in snippets of stuff that's on the disk. And this is just, I just wanted to bury all the nastiness in another file. Plus, like I said, I didn't want to load it. There's no sense in loading it on a display when I'm not actually even going to use the editor.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that up there, but I was like, that can't be all of it.
Oh, no, that's not all of it. If you're curious, I'll send you some stuff to show you exactly. I just don't happen to have that here, so. Okay. All right. One other thing I thought I'd talk about, because I had a request for this, was tied hashes. Anybody used tied variables before in Perl? I see a few nods, maybe a little. Okay. Well, I guess most of you haven't, so maybe it'll be kind of interesting for you. All right. This right here is actually the config file. I just wanted to start here so you could see where it all starts. Basically, you've got a tie command. And well, I should probably back up in case some people don't even know what that means. Basically, what tying does allows you to take a normal Perl variable, tie it to your own class, and redefine what Perl does with that variable when you do things like access the value in it, or set the value in it, or like in the case of an array or a hash, loop through stuff. You basically get to redefine what happens. So there are a lot of modules out there, like you can tie to like DBM files so that you're using a variable, but guess what? All your values are actually stored on disk. Which can be really nice if you've got, like, you want this huge hash and you don't want it in memory. You obviously take a little bit of speed penalty, reading from disk, but that way you've got it on disk. You can treat it just like a normal hash. It's totally transparent to you when you use it in your program, but it's actually reading it off of disk rather than reading it from memory. And there are a bunch of modules out there on CPAN. Oh, actually, one that I use a lot is it's a tie IX hash, for IX standing for index, I think, where basically what it does is give you an ordered hash. I use that throughout this whole thing. because sometimes you'd like to have a hash where you actually get things back in the same order that you put them in.
Click on CPAN is TIE-IX hash?
TIE-IX hash, yeah. And they're actually just like a lot of modules in Perl land. There are a lot of modules that do that same thing. That just happens to be one of the oldest, and I've just been using it forever, so that's what I'm used to. For all I know, there's something that's a million times better out there now. I'm not sure, but that's the one I use. And basically, what I use it for is when I have things like drop downs. You know, a lot of times where you're reading from a database, you'll have an HTML drop down where you want to display a text thing, but when they submit it, you actually want to send back an ID. So I use it for that, but that way my drop down is actually in whatever order I want it to be in. So I can sort it. I can actually even put in like things like please select value or something. I can stick that in the hash first, then do my query, shove everything into the hash, and guess what? In your drop down, it all shows up nice and in order. So that's pretty nice. So I'll show you a little bit about actually how you go about tying things. So when you specify the tie, you specify the hash that you want to tie, you specify the class that you want to tie it to, and this is an extra parameter that this is expecting to see, which basically this just tells this, where am I storing this stuff on disk? I need some sort of a root directory to store things. That's all that is telling it where it's storing that. Oops. All right. I'll just show you briefly this is the main program that gets called whenever you hit any one of the pages. It's short enough. I just thought I'd go through it just to give you kind of an idea of how it works. Basically, when I built this thing, I wanted a very, very small program that basically does the bare minimum just to bootstrap the rest of the system, and then off it goes into all the modules and classes and stuff. So just got some variables I set up here. I could be using our instead of use vars, but again, this is really old stuff, and sometimes I was on old versions of Perl, and so sometimes you get a little backwards compatibility cruft, but that could be our instead of use vars, but either way it works. Basically, since I'm doing CGI stuff, I get my CGI object. So I load in my config, I set a little debugging flag, which just puts out an HTTP header for me so that if it's blowing up, I can actually see the stuff rather than just getting a 500 error, which, as you all know, anybody who does web development is singularly unhelpful. So this is the main base class that I told you. So like I said, it's mainly for passing in my configuration so that all the rest of the module structure can see, get access to these values. So whether or not I've got debugging on, I can turn on debugging per command too. If there's only certain commands I want to see debugging for, I can do that as well. This is the request object. Going back to your earlier question about mod Perl, that's why it's called request, is because at one time I was using mod Perl, so I made it a little more mod Perl-like. So there's my template directories where it's going to find all the templates it's going to display. In the case of the wiki, there's only a handful of them. You got the main wiki page. The edit page is literally the same template page. You got the search results page, and I don't know what I'm missing, but maybe one or two others. There's not very much there. Not found templates for displaying your nice 404s, and the index directory where it can find all the HTML files. So let's see. I create any database connections that I need here. I can set them up in the config file as many as I need. Usually I'll only need one, but if you need multiples, set them up here. there's my, you remember my content hash? This is my magical tide hash here that is representing all the content of the wiki. That's being put into the object, so I have it, and there you go again, mod Perl handle request. And so it goes off and does its thing, and then from there it loads the template, which then uses the parser to parse the tags, and then calls the commands or handles variables, depending on which it was. And actually, as a little aside for the guys who work here, we had one of the developers in our parent company is in the main office is in Lansing, Michigan. One of the guys had done a profiling thing. So just for the heck of it, I did this. I'm using this framework on my wife's website, so I did a profiling thing. It was actually very enlightening to see what was slow. It was not what I expected at all. The parsing part of it, which I always worried, is it fast enough? Is it fast? Wasn't even on the radar. It was, so fast that just not even close. It was a bunch of other things which had to do with overriding objects and calling override a lot. I don't know if anybody's ever used that. I kind of wanted to get that into this talk, but that was a little too much, so I might do another talk on overloading some other time. So anyways, if you ever get a chance, Greg, can you help me with the name of the profiler? Do you remember? It's NYT Prof, yes, because it was written and used at the New York Times, was why the NYT. So anyways, if you ever get a chance to use that, it's very fascinating to look, because I've read that many times before, that programmers are notoriously bad at figuring out which part of their code is slow. I just proved it. It's true. It was really surprising to me. Parts that and it also, I haven't fixed this yet, but I realized I can optimize something because all of that overload stuff that's going on, I'm actually using that in places I actually don't need it, where I just need to pull the values out instead of using overloaded objects. So I'm actually going to fix that at some point. I didn't get time to fix that before this talk. All right. So that was, again, I kind of got off onto all kinds of tangents. So to bring us back to what we were actually talking about, tide hashes, you remember, defined in the config file, run through the bootstrap program that pulls everything up. And now we'll actually look at the class that does everything. Okay, basically, this is, pretty much your standard header stuff. One thing I might mention, I don't know if anybody's tried IO all. It's a little crazy. It's probably one of those modules, either you'll love it or you'll hate it. I actually like it a lot because it does really cool things, like allows you to specify a file 5 directories deep and none of those directories exist yet, and it'll go off and merrily just create them for you if you ask it to. So it's really nice to do a lot of different I/O stuff, and obviously since that's all this thing is doing is I/O, thus it being here. So we'll skip most of that stuff. One other thing, actually, I'll throw this in. This wasn't actually in the talk, but this is another use of dynamically creating methods or functions at runtime. Basically, again, I wrote this before I know there are tons and tons, and I know Moose probably does this. Tons of modules that do this.
The same thing I wrote.
But basically,
before I started using Moose.
Yeah, I wrote my own. What this does is just creates all my mutators for me, just my setters and my getters, because who wants to write all that crap when it all looks the same except the names are different. So basically, this will go through this list of things. So these are my mutators that I'm creating. That'll go through and create them for me, just so I don't have to do it. Okay, so here is the tie hash sub. This is the thing that first gets called when you tie it. So this is where you do like your initialization of stuff. This is where I set, my key directory, because I need some place to store all this content. And this is where I'm checking, does that thing exist? If it doesn't, create it. And then, die with any number of errors depending on what went wrong. Okay, so you'll notice too that the subname is all in uppercase, which should give you a clue if you're used to the Perl conventions that there's something special about this name. There is. Basically, for tying to each different variable type, if you look in the Perl documentation, it'll tell you all the different methods that are available that you either need to replace or you need to have some sort of stub for or something. It'll list all of those. And a hash, because a hash happens to be one of the most complicated basic data type, has a lot more methods than like a scalar does. Scalar's pretty simple to tie. So we'll scroll down here. Fetch does what you would expect. In other words, whenever you use that hash and you assign whatever key you're accessing to another value, this is now what gets called. Instead of Perl just doing its lookup in memory in the hash table, it now does this stuff instead. I just do some monkeying with the paths to make sure they're clean and what I expect. There's my auto vivification I was talking about earlier that gets simulated. This is the IO all, so nothing magical here. Basically, this is just how it works. To create with this assert, I'm saying, yes, I want you to create this path, even though, yes, I know it doesn't exist. Go ahead and just do it for me. So I also do all my file locking here. Obviously, if multiple people are editing this at the same time, you don't want them stepping all over each other. Slurping, which obviously, since each content block is just dumped to a file, all I want to do is pull all that junk back in. So I just slurp it up and return the value. And that's basically, you could have this doing any number of things in your tied hash. And initially before DBI, tying was actually how you would access databases. I actually kind of got into Perl after those bad old days, but I was at least early enough that I kind of read about it and heard that how you used to access databases. It was kind of not too cool, but tying in and of itself is. I'm not going to go through all of these one by one, but I'll just kind of go through and just point out their store. Obviously, whenever you're storing the value. Exists is whenever you're checking to see whether or not that key exists. It just goes out to the file system and says, hey, do I have a file by that name that fits the path? If I do, it exists. If I don't, it doesn't. Delete, does what you would expect, goes out, deletes the file. Clear is actually, if I remember right, you have to forgive me because it's been a while since I wrote this. I think that is if you want to clear the whole hash. So it's going to, because it's going through the whole thing and basically nuking everything. So if you clear that whole hash, like assign it to, an empty list or something, it's going to call clear. It'll go through and nuke everything for you. First key is whenever you're iterating, looping through your keys, you have to call this first key first and do your stuff there, and then next key gets called for every subsequent call after that. And again, I'm not going to go through all the details here. Just want to give you all the basics of that. And that's basic. Oh, and a scalar is what does this hash do when you use the hash in scalar context? Well, this is what I decided I wanted it to do, and it gives you basically all the keys back if you use it in scalar context. You could have it do any number of things. You could have it return nothing if you wanted to. Once you tie the hash, you have full control over what it does and how it behaves. So you could have any number of things happen there. Any questions for that before I close it?
So what happens if you don't?
Well, basically, it's going to blow up when you try to use it in your program and try to access that particular function of it, it's going to blow up. So when you're developing it, it's pretty handy to at least just stub out all of them and like have it do something like just print a standard out, hey, this was called, and then not do anything, because then at least it doesn't, yeah, exactly. At least you can use it and develop them one by one, and it's not going to blow up on you when you haven't fully built out all the functionality first. So when I built that, that's what I did, is just stubbed everything out and then kind of built them one by one through it.
It doesn't try to fall back on what Perl normally does with it? It just...
You know what? I should probably look that up because I don't remember, but I think that it does actually blow up when it tries to. Okay. Good. I'm glad I'm not lying to you.
Because I mean, it doesn't really know what object it's dealing with.
Yeah, exactly. Because now you've taken control, and Perl expects you to provide everything that it does, and if you don't, then you're in trouble. I hope it turns out to be right. If it doesn't, you'll see an apology later this week on the list saying, sorry, I lied to you.
That's kind of why.
Okay. Yeah, now I'm curious. If I remember, I'll look it up and I'll post to the list for sure one way or the other, because I can't remember for sure what it does. And I hate when I lie to people. So I try to avoid that. So that is, oh my gosh. Look at that. Yeah. That's pretty much it. Now, actually, I wanted to try to keep it down to an hour so that we've got a little bit of time to talk about, where we want the Perl Phoenix PM to go from here and stuff like that. So, one last call for any questions about the presentation.
What do you use for loading configs in? I see a .cfg file that you...
Oh, that's just require, which I'll have to admit I've been on the fence about that method. There are like pros and cons for using a require. So basically this .cfg is just Perl code that I'm just requiring in it at runtime. A lot of people like to use YAML instead. There's all kinds of different config. I guess this has never just bugged me enough to switch from it. I'll have to admit it has bugged me a little bit, but I haven't ever gotten away from it because sometimes you can't do really cool things like that whole tying thing. That way, whenever I'm developing a different application with this framework, I can put specific configuration like tying or whatever in the config file. A lot of people would say that's cheating because I'm putting code in a config file. So, I wouldn't argue with you if you want to say that because, yeah, you're right, that is cheating. But, I tend to do what's practical, not necessarily always what's right. So, anyway, any other questions?
So what different, give me examples of the different things that you've done with this? Because you said the wiki is an example, but it sounds like you've done other stuff. Yeah,
I've actually done, as probably a lot of people who've done web development, I've done a whole bunch of websites that don't exist anymore. Yeah, because the places went out of business or whatever.
But yeah, like what type? So basically, like mostly content sites and.
It's primarily. Just web development stuff. Although actually the parser I use kind of like, what is it? Is a template toolkit that you can use the parser for other things? I can't remember. It's one of them you can. I actually use the parser for other things. Like actually at one point I'm going to give a talk about, so you get a little preview here, that basically I got tired of writing CRUD screens. Everybody knows what CRUD is. It's the create, retrieve, update, delete screens where you just access interfacing with your database. So basically, I wrote a program that goes out and reads my database schema, and again, using this templating system, builds all of my CRUD screens for me, using all the relationships between the tables and everything like that. And I actually do use the parser in that too, because I kind of define the way those templates need to be built, all the different blocks, and then it puts in the proper things depending on which, thing it does. So, does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like. So when you did it for like clients, did you they're logged in, they can edit. I mean, it seems like it'd be pretty easy if you did it for a client.
Yeah.
Would you then let them? They could just
exactly. Yes.
That's cool.
And actually, you know what? Let me just try something on a whim. I don't know.
Oh boy. Foresight now. It's gonna
Oh, you know what? I forgot this is not. Sorry, I have my browser set up so that you can search from the main bar. I'm still bitter about that change. So I have no idea whether or not this is still my code, so that's why I'm saying I'm trying it on a whim.
Skip intro. Uh-oh. That's a flash.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, we didn't want to see that anyways. You know what?
And it's
I think this is still my code. Yeah. This. Yeah. Besides the flash intro, which I had nothing to do, I worked on a designer. I didn't do any of the design either. But actually, I'm going to guess this is still using my code because the design hasn't changed. So it looks like it is. So there's a website that. And like I said, lots of websites that have completely gone away. Oh, you know what? Oh, cPanel. That's funny. Yeah, that's actually not mine. And I did this like 5 years ago or something, so who knows what's changed to it. And I haven't talked to him since, so anyway. Okay.
Are they still around, or is it just one of those phantom sites that just never dies?
That's a good question. I don't know.
36th Street.
It was one of those things where I knew a designer who knew the owners of the, how that works. So anyways, that's what that was.
Free copy for a year.
Well, actually, I don't live anywhere close to there, so no, I didn't get any free coffee. But luckily, I did get paid.
Because you don't live there.
Yeah, exactly.
Free coffee, so that was a good deal.
Yeah, well, actually, I drink free coffee.
Oh, free coffee.
I don't drink it on an empty stomach because it kills my stomach. Okay. Any other questions at all? Okay.
So every time you load the page, it regenerates it, but like in the moment Java's page, you have something that would basically generate like the index.html file, so it doesn't regenerate every time? No, it actually does regenerate. Again, because this right now is more or less kind of a hobby thing. Works great for small scale sites. Is not going to scale real. I mean, well, first of all, CGI. That right there says it. It's not going to scale. But I do have grand plans where it's going to take me probably another 10 years to finish this. But actually, eventually, I'm slowly moving in the direction of having a full-blown content management system where I'll have all kinds of fancy things like caching and stuff like that. Not there yet. Again, I barely have any free time now the way it is, so I just fiddle with it a little when I have time. So anyways, hopefully this was worth your time coming out tonight. So hopefully you learned something. All right, thank you. Okay, next I just wanted to open the floor to just kind of discuss. Well, first I'll give you guys a little history for some of you guys that weren't, at the old meetings when I ran them, because I don't know exactly how Scott ran them, so I probably do it differently because when Brock and Scott took over, they kind of moved the meetings around. Back when I did them, they were all at the company I used to work with, Bound. Now they're probably, if I call the meeting, it's going to be here. If somebody else wants to call a meeting and have it somewhere else, hey, I don't care. That's fine with me.
A lot of the meetings at Scottsdale Community College.
Okay.
Then we had some random ones some other places.
Yeah.
They were just random format.
Okay.
Whoever wanted to speak spoke for a while.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm probably a little more structured than that. Hopefully not completely a Nazi about it, but I do like to have like a set presenter. Hopefully they've done some preparation before they come, and stuff like that. So that's one of the things I'd like to see. We did, back when I ran it, we did do primarily technical presentations. The social ones we do every once in a while, but usually those had pretty low attendance. And in fact, one time I was the only person who showed up, so that was fun. Yeah, that was the anti-social meeting. Question. Oh, Randall Schwartz? Yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting.
Yeah.
Social.
Yeah, that was a long time ago too. When Randall Schwartz actually came to town one time years and years ago, back probably in the second or third year I was running it. The other cool thing that we did is Damian Conway. Damian Conway was here actually in Tucson for I think it was a bioinformatics conference. And so I had sent him an email saying, hey, it'd be really nice if you stopped by and said hi, since you're going to be in the state. And he was just the most gracious guy. He was like, I'd love to, but unfortunately my flight is directly into Tucson. Well, guess what we did? We got in a bunch of cars. We drove to Tucson, had a presentation, took him out to dinner. He thought we were absolutely nuts. He's like, you guys are actually going to drive halfway across the state to see me? But it was great. It was awesome. Yeah, we had a great time. He still thought we were nuts. He's like, those people in Phoenix are the craziest people I've ever seen, because they drove halfway across the state.
He was in the cop rush hour here.
Yeah, could be. So anyway, sorry, I got now I'm all over the place, off on tangents. No, that's fine. But so anyways, since this is a new bunch of people, I'm open to suggestions. If some people would like to do more social things, let me know. We can talk about all this on the list. We don't have to spend all night.
Damian Conway. His book, Best Practices.
Yes.
Is absolutely super. That
it is.
Just chock full of pearls.
Yep.
It is beautiful.
I have a copy in there. Well, and if you ever get a chance to hear him speak, literally drive halfway across the state to do it. It's worth it. He's really an excellent speaker.
When was that one?
I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, something like that. It was.
Updated at least.
Yeah.
I think I had one on Manning.
I think it was like 2000.
This isn't right.
2000. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember.
One I don't have yet.
Okay.
Kind of like this.
One of the other things, since I've kind of gotten to be an old man, I actually live quite a ways away from here. We used to have the meetings last about 2 hours. Now I'm thinking more probably an hour and a half-ish. But if people want to stay, there is a bar and grill. Or is it a bar or is it just a grill? I haven't been there yet.
There's a sports grill right there that just opened, and
it's within.
It was pretty good.
It's within walking distance.
It's 100 yards from the building.
Yes.
Anyway, so it's not like an actual walk.
So that might be a consideration.
And there's another one. There's a more like an Asian type restaurant, the Roca Acnor or whatever, that also has a bar. And then there's a bar. I know where all the bars are.
Okay, there you go.
There's a bar down there in that plaza too. It's like a wine bar, but it's actually.
Okay.
Beer as well, but not.
Great. So basically what I'm saying is after the presentation is over, I'm going to be completely hands off. It's self-organizing. If people want to go and do that, you guys go and do that. I'm most likely going to go home. Don't take it as me being rude. I have to get up and go to work tomorrow morning. And I'm sure you guys do. But for me, I actually got to get home and get some sleep. So if you guys want to do that, if we want to have like a full meeting that's just social and we want to meet, somewhere nearby, that's fine with me too. If you want to meet somewhere completely different, that's fine too, except if it's like really, really far away from my house, you probably won't see me there. There's a good reason for that. Actually, right now I can't drive, and I won't go into the whole explanation why. It's not legal. It's actually a medical thing. So there's a good reason why I won't drive. I just thought, that could be interpreted many different ways. No, I have not had DUIs. No, it's actually a medical condition. So right now I can't do a lot of driving. But again, what I'm saying is I don't view myself as a dictator. If somebody wants to go and organize something, great, go and do it. More power to you. It's fine with me. But most of the things that I organize will be like in this general area. So I'm going to be looking to people actually more probably than I used to do presentations, because I used to do like about 80% of it. These guys can attest I did a lot of presentations. We also had you guys did some, Scott did some. We did have more than just me, but usually I was kind of the default. I'd like to actually get more people involved. You don't have to be professional. You don't have to have ever spoken in front of people before. It's a great way to learn. As you can tell, crowd is pretty nice. They're not going to heckle you too bad. Actually, I miss some of my old hecklers from the old days. I used to, what was that guy's name? Do you remember who I'm talking about? He worked at American Express. I don't remember his name, but anyways, he used to come and heckle me, so that was always a lot of fun. He would keep me on my toes. So basically, what I'd like to do is we'll take this to the list. I'd like to see people volunteering to give presentations if you've got anything, and it can be at any level. You know, if honestly, you'd be amazed. Sometimes you come to what you think is like a beginner level or an intermediate level, and you'll still learn something you didn't know before. You know, I've been really amazed by that. So, you know, basically don't feel bad if you're presenting at a beginner level, because believe it or not, in the old days, those were my highest attended meetings. I did like a Perl 101 and a 201, and these guys can attest. Those would bring in the people. Sometimes you'd never see those people again, but they would really come in. So if you have things that you always wanted to see, like I'll throw one out. I have always wanted to see somebody do a presentation on XS and you know, tying Perl to binary, you know, libraries. I've never quite had the motivation to learn it myself, so if somebody knows, great, come and present about it. But if you've got anything like that, throw it out there. Hopefully we'll find somebody who knows something about it and they can present on it, and there you go. We'll probably, does this seem to be like a good time and day of the month for everybody? You know, I guess you made it here, so that's a good sign. Okay, we'll probably keep it then the first Thursday of the month. I'm not going to keep to that rigorously. Occasionally I may have to reschedule it, but one of the things that I found, and I've actually heard from other people who run Perl groups, is consistency is good, and I think that may have been kind of why the whole thing died off, was because the meetings were moving around. So I mean, the bad thing about Phoenix, as everybody knows, it's freaking huge. But what I'd rather see is more Perl groups rather than a Perl group that moves around, because then, you know, you're going to have a different group of people every time. You never get like a core group of people that always show up, and I'd rather see that for a stable group than, you know, moving it around all over the place. But again, if somebody actually wants to, that you can call another meeting in, you know, Ahwatukee or something. I don't care. Go ahead. I probably won't show up, but enjoy yourselves. Anybody have anything they want to add about where you'd like to see, what you'd like to get out of this group?
I've got
Marty.
one idea that might be interesting for one of the meetings is everybody just bring a list of questions or things they like to talk about and kind of have a free fall for a whole discussion, you know. I think this looks like a really interesting group, like you might be surprised at some of the answers we get.
Yeah. Can you do me a favor and just post that to the mailing list? Sure. Just because I'll never remember. That's what I'd like to see, is get this all on the mailing list, and then I'll compile it all into a list, and I'll keep track of all of it. I just won't do that tonight because it's not going to stay.
I realize that I might have a conflict on Thursdays. Does anybody have a problem with Wednesdays?
Yeah, Thursdays.
Actually, the problem is, Wednesdays probably.
Nobody had a problem with Thursdays.
Okay. Yeah, Thursdays.
It's okay.
Okay.
I don't know. I think I'm going to have a conflict like every other Thursday,
okay.
And so it's maybe I'll usually be able to come and then I'll miss one, and then you know what I mean. I'll come back.
That's
what I'm so
yeah.
it's fine.
Thursdays.
Okay, well that's fine. It's one of those things. It's real, especially with this many people. I mean, it's a miracle that we had this many people show up.
Yeah. So on the social ones, like you can actually maybe get a special presenter, like Amy Conway or something like that. You have it on a different day, maybe.
Well, yeah, we probably would.
So that'd be like twice in a month or something.
Yeah,
like that?
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, if we had the opportunity, which unfortunately I've not seen that a ton of Perl luminaries come through Phoenix very often, but if that does happen again in the future, basically, they would dictate the schedule, obviously. Whatever works for them, we would probably just call an extra meeting and cater to whatever they need, wherever they wanted to have it, that sort of thing. But that's a good point. Thanks. So
like when Perl 6 comes out, which is going to happen in the year that ends at 6, but we just don't know which one.
Yes. At Christmas.
It's coming out before Christmas.
Well, yeah, actually, if anybody's messed around, I'll admit I downloaded a relatively recent Rakudo Star and played with it just a little bit, not very much.
I'm curious, how many people here have played with it? Anybody?
Just a little bit.
I think it's cool.
That's good. I've never done it.
This stuff sounds cool.
Perl 5 isn't broken.
No, it isn't. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Works great.
Yeah, it does still work great.
Wait till it really works.
Yeah. Well,
some of the stuff they got, like the new case statement in 510.
Mm-hmm.
I use the daylights out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually the cool thing about Perl 6 too is it's bringing a lot of cool stuff into Perl 5, because the Perl 5 developers are going, hey, that's really cool, let's put that in. So it's actually, we've gotten a lot of good modules out of it, and also stuff into the core that's come from Perl 6 development.
Perl 5 might be
just
Perl 6 and everything.
They're I guess approaching each other. Actually, as slow as Perl 6 is going, Perl 5 is going to smack into the back of it. Anyway,
yeah, the prototype is the real thing.
Yeah, well, basically, as a disclaimer, anybody that does play with it, it's horribly, horribly slow because there is no optimization. And I mean no optimization really going on behind the scenes. So that's just from what I've heard and what little I've experienced. But if you want to play with it and get an idea of how it works, it's out there. So, okay, anybody else have anything they want to say? If not, I'll call the meeting. And basically the other thing is, if people want to hang out here too, that's fine, as long as there is a Liquid Web employee that's willing to stay, because that person has to kick everyone out and lock the door at the end. So that really is going to depend on who wants to stay and do whatever. Again, I wanted to the first time around too, something that's new this time is we've got a little more sponsorship than we kind of did the first time. I mean, Bound did allow me to have the meetings, but literally, other than that, they were completely oblivious to the fact that it was going on. Our company, Liquid Web, is actually more involved. They like I said, they hired 6 Perl developers here. Could be in the future they want more. Don't know for sure at this point yet. But they're a little more involved. They're a little more active. Do we have enough? Thanks. 1, 2. Well, why am I counting you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, we got enough. If you guys want, before you leave, you can get a squishy hero. That's our.
I'm the official hero.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Brian.
Sweet. Tom, you can throw it back at him.
Yeah, because.
I'll put it in.
Yeah, believe it or not, there's kind of a funny story there. They were actually sending us a whole box of stuff to give away. We didn't get it today, so we gathered up. Everybody gave theirs back, and we gathered them all up to give away. But yeah, we'll probably get a box full of stuff tomorrow. So. Yeah.
And you've got one with writing on it, you can trade it in. Oh, no, my daughter was having fun with a lot of them when they came here.
So, and the other thing is, I don't know to the degree that they're going to want to be involved, but so far, AZ Tech Finders, the headhunter group that pretty much put this group together, seems interested. They brought us cake tonight. Again, they've got cards. I know some people feel a little squeamish about, in the open source community, about getting too corporate and stuff. So I'm going to try to find some kind of nice balance. I really don't expect it to be a problem, but I'm just letting you know there it is.
Squeamishness with the way the economy is.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it.
It's not like we could go buy you cookies. It's not like we're relying on
exactly.
Right.
Well, and actually they were supposed to be here tonight. Unfortunately, kind of had an emergency. They weren't able to get here, but hey, they actually made it here to drop the food off for us, even though they couldn't make it to the meeting. And they probably will show up to some future meetings.
Katie said they're hoping very much to be at the very next one.
Okay, good.
The plan is for them to be here.
I also did ask them, and I'll gauge interest. They may actually at the PHP, the AZ PHP meeting. I guess one of the meetings they did recently, they actually did a presentation of the health of the tech economy here in Phoenix. If you guys are interested in that sort of thing, I can ask them if they'd like to come and do that some night too. You know what? We could even possibly do things. I don't even feel like we have to be Nazi-ish about Perl necessarily. I was talking to Tom about this earlier today. Like, he's done a lot of stuff with SEO, search engine optimization in the past. If there's interest in that, even though it's kind of, it's not directly Perl, but it's, interesting to a lot of people who do web development. If there's interest in that kind of thing, throw it out there. If people are interested, we'll let you do a presentation on it. I don't see any reason that, basically I want everybody here to feel like they've never wasted their time when they come here. So they come here, you learn something new, have some fun, make fun of me, whatever, that sort of thing.
Going again.
Yeah, so am I, and I'm sorry it took me so long to do it again, but this actually turned out perfect, because I had actually decided to start the meetings up last year before I got this job here. I was actually planning to start them up this year. Some of it kind of got delayed because of the job here, because I figured, well, I want to wait until everything's settled, and then we had to get furniture and chairs and stuff like that. So it delayed it a little bit, but here we are. So, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Brian, talk.
Sophia or no, I was just going to say, what about conceptual stuff, just like generic programming?
Basically, I would say throw it out to the list. Throw it out to the list, and if there's interest, people will say there's interest, and then we'll say, sure, come and present. If everybody goes, oh, that's the worst idea ever, you might have an uphill battle, but I'm guessing that probably won't happen. I found Perl people to be among some of the nicest people around, so glad you all made it out here tonight. I'm probably going to take off here pretty soon. Is you guys going to stay around, or you want to head out?
I can stick around for a little bit.
It's up to you. Don't feel obligated.
Stick around for a few minutes, but not too long.
Not too long. Okay.
Yeah, 15, 20 minutes probably.
Okay. So if people want to hang out and talk for a little while, feel free to do that. What I'd like to do is start to get. I don't want to do like these business talks every time. I'm only doing this because it's the first meeting. I like to see this stuff going on to the list where people say, hey, like maybe one of the Liquid Web people said, hey, I found this great dive bar that's. Although a dive bar in Scottsdale, do those exist? Never mind. But anyways, I found this great place. It's close by. Whatever. Throw it up on the list. And I'll try to do a good job of, compiling all the interesting stuff that needs to be kept track of, like presenters. And if you volunteer to present, I'm not going to be high pressure, but I got to pick somebody. So I'll pick somebody and say, hey, you think you can get something ready by next month? I might get a backup person to say, hey, you think you can be ready? You'll actually be 2 months out, but just in case the first person, gets a flat tire or whatever, can't show up for some reason, gets sick, that sort of thing. So, anyways, thanks again for coming. Oh, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, it'd be kind of cool. How many people here use Facebook? Everybody's super
I actually don't.
No, so yeah, I was just thinking we should maybe start a Facebook group. I mean, obviously we have the mailing list, but Facebook's a bit kind of fun because you get to more connect with people and see.
Okay.
So
I'll talk to you more about that.
Use Facebook?
Yeah.
See, I don't use it either. I don't use it
The only thing
either.
I'd worry about having Facebook is if we started having stuff part there instead of the list, because then you lose the.
Well, that's the thing. So maybe not even a group. Maybe just that's actually the group I only thought of because are we gonna all? But almost be better if we just. Whatever, somehow we could know who to friend, you know. So maybe
Okay.
anybody who's interested, mail the list or something. Say here's my Facebook.
Yeah.
Somewhere there's
something
a-
that'd be cool.
there's a whole
Don't even
Perl
a group,
Mongers,
it'd be more
Perl
right.
Mongers
So you know who
page.
to friend.
Yeah, there is. Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up, Bill. Yeah, actually, we do have a website which currently Scott Walters is still mostly in charge of. He is out of town on business, so he wasn't able to make it tonight. When he does actually get here, we may throw together some kind of informal website committee. That's probably not something I have time to do, but if Scott still wants to do it, if not, he may pass it on to somebody else. Desperately needs to be updated. Actually, I did log in long enough to take off the most egregiously old stuff off the homepage, but it's phoenix.pm.org. I'm going to try to at least get if I can remember how to do Google Maps API stuff, I'll get a map up on the website. Because again, I don't know if people have used Google Maps to find places in Scottsdale, but it's horrible. It will get you completely lost. The map I all sent you, I had to tweak by hand to actually get it to show the right place. So anyway.
I think you can link to that too, like once you have it tweaked, if you
Yes.
link to this map, so.
Yeah, and that's what I did when I sent it out. And I'll just do that in every, once we have a few meetings under our belt, you'll notice that I do a lot of cut and paste.
Yeah, that worked good. That was good. That was a good job.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad everybody, well, at least the people who made it here didn't have any trouble finding it. Can't speak for any of the people who didn't show up. They may be driving around Scottsdale still. So anyway, all right, well, thanks, guys.
Any help putting any of this back?